Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Out of the Park Baseball 25 mini-series with the Seattle Mariners. And we've got a lot to talk about here as we get ready for the 2024 season to get underway. First and foremost is something that Mark Downs and Fake Name both brought up following our last episode. And it's something that we had looked at and we meant to kind of talk about in the episode, but totally slipped our mind when all was said and done. So I'm glad they brought this up because they both made the point that Seattle actually has some really good arms on the injured list. And I didn't talk about any of these guys in the last episode when we met our team. Sam Haggerty is the only non-pitcher on the IL, right fielder. Looks like he could be a useful bat, pretty versatile player. Not necessarily the greatest power, but a little bit of speed. Low leadership, and he likes to read in his spare time. We have, since the last episode, fired our scout and upgraded with a new scout who is much higher quality. But by basis of that move, you can see that we have pretty low scouting accuracy on a lot of the players we'll be talking about. But hopefully over the medium term, getting a higher quality scout in will help us. Haggerty, certainly someone who hopefully will be able to help us not too far down the line. Does have arbitration years left, so we will be able to put him in AAA if we need. And then there are four pretty interesting pitchers, one of whom we're not going to have at all this year, and that's Jackson Kowar, out for the year with a torn UCL, Tommy John surgery. He'll be 29 years old, or 28 years old, close to 29 years old by the time he's most likely to have a chance to play in the major leagues again, because it'll probably be around the All-Star break next year when he's finally healthy enough to potentially play. Hasn't really impressed in the major leagues thus far in his career. Probably the least important of the four pitchers we'll be talking about, since he's not going to be able to help us till next year, but not a horrible arm. But the other three are even more interesting to me, not only because they could be helping us out before the All-Star break. Matt Brash, out with elbow inflammation. His stuff is off the charts. Again, low scouting accuracy right here, but he's been a pretty solid reliever for Seattle for the last season and a half. Fastball, slider, and knuckle curve that are all excellent. His stuff, as I mentioned, off the charts. Question is just keeping the ball in the park and hopefully not walking too many batters. Last year he did a great job keeping the ball in the park. Walked a decent amount, but when you still have a strikeout to walk ratio of close to 4 and 13.6 strikeouts per 9 innings, those are the kind of pitchers who can probably get away with walking a few more batters. Gregory Santos, even better, in my view, 24-year-old who we think could be a pretty big-time pitcher for Seattle. Excellent fastball, slider, and an above-average sinker. Not great stamina. He's clearly a bullpen arm, but we think he's got plus stuff, plus movement, and plus control. Extreme ground ball tendencies and throws in the triple digits. So he will certainly be an upgrade to our bullpen when he is ready to come back. And then last but certainly not least, Brian Wu came up last year, made his major league debut, out with elbow inflammation now. 3-pitch arsenal, including an excellent fastball and slider, and I think it is very conceivable that once he is healthy, in a couple of weeks, we'll get him on a rehab assignment, and it is certainly conceivable to me that he could be pushing Austin Voth for a spot in the rotation once he's healthy. So, good point by Mark and Fake Name to make sure that we spent some time talking about those bullpen arms, and in the case of Wu, a potential rotation arm that will bolster this pitching staff that I already like a lot. I like it. I like her a lot. And in addition to kind of going through our disabled list and making her injured list, I want to make sure to use the proper terminology. We also have turned over a bunch of coaches. As I mentioned, we've got a new scout on board. And then we also took a look at the trading block. And you can see here there's not really a ton of pitchers available. And our accuracy on a lot of those players is not incredible. And batters, there's even a smaller pool of players available. But part of the reason that there's a small pool of everyday players available is that we've made a couple of trades that I think are really going to bolster the Seattle offense. We talked during our initial episode about the fact that we didn't necessarily love our first base situation, and we also talked about the fact that we thought we could potentially upgrade our outfield. And we've made a couple of trades with players that were on the trade block that I think will allow us to do both things. The first trade is we picked up Michael Conforto from the Giants. And those of you who watched our Yankees miniseries in OOTP 25 are probably laughing about this because we signed with the Yankees Conforto as a free agent after the 24 season, traded him away right before the trade deadline in 25. Then we traded back for him right before the trade deadline in 2026. And then we declined the option on the third season we gave him when we signed him as a free agent ahead of the 2027 season. So Conforto was a big part of that playthrough, even though he probably played less than 162 games for the Yankees over the 2 seasons he was on the team. And we've added him into the outfield mix for the Mariners here. I think he can certainly be an upgrade, particularly against right-handed pitching, to what we had. We gave away Cade Marlowe, who was going to be an outfielder on our team. We really like his defense. We really like his speed. I just don't think that Marlowe is going to really be a major league hitter. I could be wrong about that. He's young, and he was an above-average offensive player when he made his major league debut with Seattle a year ago. But we felt like for a left-handed bat, Conforto was better than Marlowe. And then we also gave up minor league lefty Brian Perez and minor league right-handed pitcher Jose Giraldo, neither of whom are particularly big prospects. So we felt like that was a small upgrade to the outfield. And as I mentioned, first base was another concern for us. And we also had owner goals associated with first base. Owner wanted us to upgrade at first base this year. And the owner also wanted us to add an MVP within the next few seasons, believing that by the end of 2026. And as it turned out, someone who met both of those criteria was on the trade block, and Paul Goldschmidt was put on the block by the Cardinals, who were in a rebuilding mode. So we're really excited to have him on board. He's in the final year of his contract, but a clear upgrade. And again, our scouting accuracy is very low, so this is certainly not certain. But based on the career that Goldschmidt has had and the fact that he was still a well above average offensive player a year ago, think as we get to know him better with our scouting report, he's not going to differ materially from the solid offensive player that we think he is right now. And he will be a big upgrade at first base. And our owner will also be pleased that we have added a most valuable player, even though he is certainly most likely on the downside of his career. To bring him on board, we had to give a decent amount. We did send away Luke Raley, who was going to be our starting first baseman. He actually, in terms of his WRC plus with Tampa a year ago, had on paper a better year than Goldschmidt. But when I look at his profile, I just didn't think he was a prototypical first baseman. And you can see the Cardinals have actually moved him to right field. And in addition to him, we had to give over a few other players. Minor league second baseman Nick Solak, that's fine. minor league second baseman Ryan Bliss, who has some potential, not a necessarily huge prospect. Minor league second baseman Jose Caballero, another guy who's a okay prospect. He's going to draw a lot of walks. I just don't know if he's going to hit enough. And then we did have to give up Lazaro Montez, who's one of the better, higher rated at least, prospects in our system. He's only made it as high as A-ball, but he's also only 19 years old. I think these ratings, given the low scouting accuracy, are a little low for him compared to where I had seen him, I believe, only a week or so ago in Game Time when we still had our original scout on board. But I didn't ultimately feel like it was anyone who was going to be a definite star for Seattle. And the opportunity to add Goldschmidt to Conforto and really upgrade our offense for this year without making a huge long-term sacrifice, in my opinion, made sense. Wins us some goodwill with the owner by getting the MVP on board, even though he's probably only going to be with us for this 1 year and then move on to free agency. And I think we will have a better offense. I've talked about this in the last episode, and I've talked about it with some of you in the comments, but I didn't know a ton about this Seattle team before kind of taking a look at them and a deep dive in them when we started this series. And I actually think this Seattle team on paper is a pretty decent team that I think can compete with Texas and Houston in that difficult AL West. Should they be favored over the last two World Series winners? Probably not. But with the addition of Conforto and Goldschmidt, a rotation that I like already, and the fact that we've got 3 or 4 pitchers who should be coming off of the IL in the next month and a half, 2 months. Actually, it's 3 who will be coming off the IL if everything goes well in the next month and a half, 2 months to bolster both our bullpen and our rotation. I feel like we got to at least make a run at it, this team. So we're going to get the season underway. As I mentioned, we probably helped ourselves with ownership by acquiring that MVP, hopefully upgrading at first base. And although ownership only expects us to achieve a winning record this year, I certainly think this team can be a strong competitor to get in the playoffs. As I mentioned, there's 2 tough teams in our division, and then also in the AL East, you've got the Rays, you've got the Orioles, you've got the Yankees, probably even have Toronto lurking this year, and then someone will win a playoff spot in the Central. Probably only one team out of the Central, but there's still going to be several really good teams in the AL East and the AL West who are most likely going to be fighting for those 3 wild card spots. So no guarantees that we're going to guide this team into the playoffs, but it's certainly my goal, even if it's not necessarily John Stanton's goal. And we won 6-3 on opening day. And just moments ago, I was telling you how excited I was for this season. And you'll note here in the line score that we only got 1 inning pitched from our ace, George Kirby. Gave up a hit and a walk and struck out 2. Injured while pitching. And George Kirby needs elbow ligament reconstruction surgery and is out for the year. Going to miss spring training next season. Hopefully we'll have him back healthy somewhere around the All-Star game next year. So, certainly a huge blow to lose our ace 1 inning into the season. It's kind of the equivalent of what happened in the NFL to the New York Jets this past year with Aaron Rodgers. A lot of excitement about the season, and hopefully the Mariners will fare better than the Jets did without Aaron Rodgers. but it certainly is a bit of a blow to the excitement I had about this series for the top pitcher on our pitching staff and someone who I think has a huge future with this organization to be gone for the year, and makes it even more important for us to get Wu back at some point. Not going to lie, it's definitely disappointing. And honestly, there wasn't really a great option for a fifth starter for us. We're going to go with Trent Thornton. We also thought about Cody Bolton, but I'm going to give Thornton the shot at first. Probably only going to have a few starts before we hopefully get Wu back. We brought up Mauricio Levera from AAA. Hadn't even pitched a game there yet, and we'll see if he can slide in to the bullpen and give us a little bit of help. But definitely reeling a little bit at this point with that massive injury in the opening minutes, literally, of the 2024 season. And especially with the injury to Kirby, maybe not feeling as great about the fact that we brought on Conforto and Goldschmidt now, although they should help our offense. But we ended up not being able to invest quite as much as we had hoped in scouting and player development, because although we got the sending teams to keep big chunks of those contracts, they were still pretty expensive contracts. So not necessarily as a huge an investment as I'd prefer to have in scouting and player development, but we're still well above the league baseline in both of those, so I can't complain too much. It's time to see if hopefully this rejuvenated offense with the addition of those two veteran bats can help overcome the loss of our ace. And the team's definitely reeling a bit after that huge injury to start the season. 7-8 record through the first 15 games. Only a game and a half behind, although we are fourth in place in the division, so nobody running away with the AL West in the early stages of the season. We did just have another injury here, less significant than the first one, but still certainly not something completely insignificant. Dylan Moore, important utility infielder for us, out with an intercostal strain for 3 weeks. So we'll be placing him on the IL as well, and making another call down to AAA for some help. And we made it to the end of April, sitting here on May 1st. We've been playing better over the last couple of weeks. A 17-13 record puts us first in the AL West, 2 up on the defending champion Rangers and 2.5 up on the Astros. No Seattle players among the league leaders in these early stages of the season, but we have made a little bit of progress. Brian Wu is back. He had 3 games in Tacoma. We brought him up. It was certainly not a good performance in his first outing, which was a loss a couple of days ago, but still think that he can potentially be a reasonable upgrade for us. And we also have Sam Haggerty in the major leagues now. He doesn't have an at-bat in his first 3 games with the team. Also still at this point do have both of the other potential pitchers who are going to be back, Santos and Brash, on rehab assignments. I think we'll likely be seeing Santos pretty soon, so I'm actually going to spend some time with him potentially able to come back at any point now. He's pitched 4 games now, a total of 5 1/3 innings, has given up 9 hits and 3 walks, but he's also struck out 7, so he hasn't been exceptional with a whip that's not that far below his ERA. But still think, looking at his skills and the fact that we now have very high scouting accuracy on him, since we've been focusing on scouting our own team that perhaps we bring him back. And with these updated scouting reports on everybody, we're probably going to shift things around a little bit in terms of our starting lineups as well as our pitching staff as we get a little bit of healthier here. But obviously, losing Kirby is still a huge blow. We'll check in on the two new guys. Paul Goldschmidt hitting .319, 8 homers, 18 ribbies, and 113 at-bats for us, putting up a ridiculous 179 WRC+. So he's certainly been a major upgrade compared to what we would have had at first base and is certainly helping us offensively. Michael Conforto, not quite as good, 252 average, but he does have 6 home runs in 107 at-bats, so still a 119 WRC+. I think that both of those guys have been pretty important to our offensive production. Taking a look at the team statistics here, 6th in the American League in runs scored, 3rd in the American League in runs allowed, and our 17-13 record is right in line with Pythagorean expectations. So certainly the loss of Kirby was not what we were hoping for or expecting one inning into the season, but it is what it is at this point. We've made it through the first month of the season, getting a little healthier in our bullpen and our rotation, and have some help on the way in AAA with those 2 guys on rehab assignments. So we're interested in seeing what this team's going to do going forward. Again, it was not the dream start I was hoping for with that injury to Kirby. That certainly put a damper on the entire season. But as I said, we're in first place. There's no crying in baseball. And we'll see what we can do with the Mariners going forward. We'll find out how the next couple months of the season go as we approach the midpoint of the season and the All-Star break and start preparing for the trade deadline in our next episode. Until then, thanks so much for watching and hope you have a great day.